What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're doing another re-review where I give my full and complete thoughts on Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, the sequel slash follow-up to 2013's Man of Steel. This is yet another divisive movie in Zack Snyder's DCEU universe that he was trying to cultivate and build up. Batman BVS is one of those movies, just like Man of Steel, where it has a extraordinarily divisive fan base. You have people that consider this to be one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, and that everyone who criticizes it just doesn't understand this masterpiece of filmmaking. You have the other side of the fence, in which people say it's the worst superhero movie ever made. Zack Snyder is a hack. He has no idea what he's doing. He wouldn't understand these characters if you gave him a 10-minute crash course. And then you have the middle. The people who do not love this movie, they don't hate this movie. They see the potential that this movie has. They see the ideas being presented to them not being fully fleshed out. They see certain elements that are legitimately really good. They see performances that are legitimately very good. They see a story that does have elements of intrigue but is sloppily executed. And they just don't know. And they basically don't, and like I said, they don't know whether they hate this movie or like this movie. They don't know how to feel about this movie because for everything good this movie does have, it has a whole lot of not so good. I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. I don't hate this movie, nor do I love this movie. I am the realist when it comes to this movie. I'm one of the realists when it comes to this movie, in which I ain't gonna suck on the schlong of Zack Snyder, but I'm also not going to go on a bandwagon of hatred because I actually do legitimately like Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. However, my thoughts on him still stand. He does not understand the legacy characters of DC. He does not understand Superman, nor does he understand Wonder Woman, and the only Batman comic he's ever read is Dark Knight Returns. And that is very prevalent when it comes to BVS. So with all that out of the way, let's just go through this review as fast as we can, because this is going to be yet another long one. First, let me get my pros out of the way first. For the most part, the cast is very solid. Henry Cavill once again returns as Superman, and given the script that he was given, he puts in the best performance that he possibly could. Though there are a lot of scenes where he's so subdued, you can't get a read on him. Gal Gadot as Diana Prince Wonder Woman, she's all right. Honestly, truthfully, Wonder Woman serves no purpose in this movie. Like, she legitimately serves no purpose at all. She's sprinkled in all throughout. She has a little subplot where she's trying to take a thumb drive from Bruce because it has things on it that relate to her of a hidden secret. But that's pretty much it. She just floats around doing nothing. She pops up in the last 20 minutes to help to form the DC Trinity, and that's about it. You could have taken Wonder Woman out of this movie and put anyone else in it. It would have been the exact same thing. That's how useless Wonder Woman is in this movie. And not only that, I am just not a Gal Gadot fan. I don't like her in the role of Wonder Woman. I think she's a boring actress. I don't think she's really all that good. She's great on the eyes. Do not get me wrong. Gal Gadot is a very attractive woman, but as Wonder Woman, I just don't like her. She does not have that presence that I see Wonder Woman having. Her expressions are so blank, and her acting is so wooden. She has no power or oomph to her words or to her stature. There's like nothing there at all. I know this is supposed to be a pros section, but it's a lot of cons. But what can I say? BVS is a movie that has so many pros, that has so many cons that the pros get lost in them. When it comes to Ben Affleck as Batman, I was never against him being cast as Batman. I wasn't over the moon when it was announced, but I told a lot of my friends, listen, I'm not against this. Because prior to him being cast, Ben Affleck had kind of revitalized himself a little bit. He had done The Town, which was a really good crime drama. He had done Argo, which is a fantastic political thriller. And he also did Gone Girl. And Gone Girl is is a great movie directed by David Fincher. So Ben Affleck, in the couple of years being casted as Batman, he was having a little bit of a revival in his career, really making some really good movies. and putting in some really good performances. So I gave him a chance as Batman, and I'm not gonna lie. Now, when it comes to Batman, when it comes to the controversy surrounding this movie, as the way Batman was portrayed as somebody who just doesn't care anymore and is willingly killing criminals, I'm of two minds about that. I am okay with I actually like the idea of a broken Batman because that's an interesting Batman. The Batman that's always perfect. Listen, I love Batman to death. Been a fan of ever since I was a child. My favorite superhero of all time. But Batman who is good at everything, he's boring. A Batman that has failure, a Batman that loses his faith in humanity, a broken Batman, that's interesting. Seeing Batman broken is interesting, and him being put on the path to have his faith restored, that's an interesting Batman to me. BVS tries to manipulate you into thinking that's the character arc that he has, but here's the deal. When you actually watch this movie, the character arc comes out of complete left field. Batman being broken, I like it. We get we get like these little brief little scenes of what could have potentially crossed that, and we get some dialogue snippets between him and Alfred and him and Clark that hint at that. You know, we get this really good scene of Ben Affleck looking at the bat suit like it's a drug, almost as if he's addicted to it. Then immediately following that, he sees the costume of a dead Robin that was killed by the Joker. And then when Bruce goes to a foundation party, he has this line about how Gotham has always had a history with freaks and clowns. And then he has another line with Alfred about how they've been doing this for 20 years, and in those 20 years, good guys became bad, and how many of the good guys are left. Like those little snippets, we get a little insight into what's going on in Bruce's head. I personally think it would have been cool if we would have gotten some brief little flashback scenes to fully flesh those out. Maybe get a scene of what Ben Affleck's Batman was when he had the optimism and hope, and then we see what eventually led him down the path of being broken. Instead of all this stupid nightmare bullshit, which you could have easily taken out of the movie and put scenes of developing this Batman and what caused him to get broken. That would have been more interesting than these retarded nightmare scenes. And this retarded nightmare scene that I'll get to momentarily. But overall, Ben Affleck's performance, I liked it. He was a good Bruce Wayne, and as Batman, brutal as fuck. The warehouse scene is one of the best Batman scenes ever put on film. The fight with Superman, though it took 25 years to get there, and even though it lasted 5 minutes, it was very akin to how they fought in the Dark Knight Returns comic book. Of course, I would have liked to have seen more build up to that, more of a conflict between these two. You know, the whole premise of Batman going after Superman is the whole idea of Batman does not like Superman because Superman has this unlimited power. And in Batman's mind, if there's a 1% chance that he can turn on the world, then they have to take that 1% chance as an absolute certainty. So Batman's foundation for not liking Superman, very rocky to begin with, because he's not really going based off anything. Prior to this movie coming out, all we've seen Superman do is save Metropolis and put out a couple of fires here and there. He's not really given anyone any chance that he's going to go against anyone. But the skeptical Bruce Wayne doesn't believe all that. Now, I would have liked if we would have Bruce seen certain things that Superman may have did or may have been implied with. I mean, when you actually look at the beginning of this movie, there's this whole thing of Superman being framed for killing people in the desert. But when you actually watch the movie, they were shot first, and Lois has this ridiculous plot where she's trying to uncover a frame-up with this mysterious bullet, and it ends up being a very convoluted plot devised by Lex Luthor. And anyone with a fully functioning brain can tell you that, and so the movie treats it as a big mystery. Kind of stupid, kind of dumb. It's filler. Take Lois's subplot out of this movie, and it would not have changed a goddamn thing. It really would not have changed anything. The only thing you would have gotten rid of is the whole notion of Superman of this bullet, which is so convoluted and stupid it makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, I hated it. Oh my God, the writing in this movie is atrociously, just ridiculously bad. This movie was co-written by Chris Terrio, who won an Oscar for Argo. Yeah, this just proves that even though you win an Oscar, that doesn't necessarily make you a genius at writing stories. Because goddamn, was this movie poorly written. And Zack Snyder, please, I respect you. I like your movies. Stop with your story inputting. You're not good at it. You're terrible. You're like Rob Zombie. You're no different than Rob Zombie. Your story ideas can be okay, but when you actually put the pen to paper, you guys suck. Oh man, I'm getting off course. Oh, again, yeah. Like Ben Affleck's Batman, I like it. It was good. I like the whole idea of him being very aggressive. I like the whole idea of a broken bat. I think his character arc came out of left field. I think his character arc came out of left field. Could have been done 10 times better. The supporting cast in this movie, yeah, they're all right. I really like Jeremy Irons as Alfred. He and Ben Affleck have really good bantering with one another, and I could have literally seen a 2 hour movie of just Alfred and Bruce just bantering one another while Bruce is going on adventures. That's how much I like the chemistry of Affleck and Irons. Like Irons has a lot of dry humor, a lot of dry humorous moments, and he's the only one that can get snippy with Bruce, and Bruce can't do nothing about it because deep down he knows Alfred's right. Lawrence Fishburne once again returns as Perry White. He also has some nice little, funny little bits here and there. So he doesn't really add much to the movie either. But, it's fun to see Lawrence Fishburne. He is, I like him as Perry White. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Yeah, the big one. I hate Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Jesse does not put in a bad performance. But he's playing Lex Luthor like he's playing the Riddler. And it just seems totally off. I hate this version of Lex Luthor. I hated it when Jesse Eisenberg was cast. I hated it when I saw this movie, and I hated it after we watched this movie many, many times. I don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. When I see Lex Luthor, I see this guy who is who oozes self-confidence, has got charisma, has got this vain, manipulative nature to him. I don't see this neurotic Mark Zuckerberg android clone who clearly has ADHD. Honestly, truthfully, I think Zack Snyder put some of his personality in Lex Luthor. That ADHD, high tension deficit disorder Lex Luthor. I hate it so much. It's just so jarring. And I don't buy for 1 second that this version of Lex Luthor is this mastermind. When you watch this movie, Lex's plan to get these two guys to fight is so just batshit convoluted and needs so many contrivances and just coincidences in order for it to get pulled off. It is so bad. Like, it's really, really bad. The whole thing with the bullet is ridiculous. Then Lex devises this plan with a white Portuguese ship, and he's trying to look for kryptonite. And he's trying to do a bunch of all this shit, and it just like when you're watching this movie, you're like, okay, how the hell are you able to make all this work? How is this guy making all this work? How do you know Bruce Wayne's Bruce Wayne's Batman? How do you know this? The movie never tells us how we know how Lex Luthor deduced this. He's like, what? Did you wake up one day like, holy shit, Bruce Wayne's Batman? I hate Lex Luthor in this movie. He's written like garbage. He's portrayed as if he's the Riddler. Jesse Eisenberg. I don't hate him as an actor. I actually do like him in Zombieland and in The Social Network. But as Lex Luthor, he's terrible. You needed an actor who is of this. Oh, you needed an actor like a Bryan Cranston who would have been excellent as Lex Luthor. I heard rumors that Billy Zane was considered as Lex Luthor. I thought Billy Zane could have killed it as Lex Luthor. Like a very just charismatic, good-looking Lex Luthor who is really just vain and deceitful and just borderline psychopathic underneath that fake smile. Billy Zane could have pulled that off perfectly. Instead, we get neurotic Lex, and I hate neurotic Lex, and he sucks. And just because he spouts out literary allegory doesn't make him any good. And this whole subplot he has with this senator is also just filler and a waste of time. Like the Senator Finch character played by Holly Hunter, she could have been interesting. She's not against, the whole idea of the senator is that she is not against the existence of Superman. She's against the idea of Superman acting like judge, jury, and executioner, and should his power and should he be put in check and not used as a deterrent. Okay, that's interesting. The whole build up to this eventual hearing that the movie builds up, that the movie spent an hour and a half building up towards, doesn't really happen because Lex Luthor plants a bomb in the courtroom by using this guy called Wally Keefe, played by Scoot McNairy, who was established in the opening moments of this film, which takes place in the last 20 minutes of Man of Steel. Okay, since I brought up the Wally Keefe character, let me segue that into talking about the prologue of this movie, which I actually do like. I actually like the idea of this movie starting off in the last 20 minutes of Man of Steel, but we get the ground level and it's all seen through Bruce Wayne's perspective. I actually like that. So now when you watch Man of Steel and that whole thing with Zod Superman's going on, we have the idea that Bruce Wayne is down there trying to help people. I like all that. He helps this guy called Wally Keefe who had his legs crushed. And then we have more scenes of Wally Keefe who is pretty much, against the idea of Superman. And he gets manipulated by Lex. Now, originally, Wally Keefe was supposed to be turned into the character of Matala, which I thought would have been a good idea, and it would have paid off Wally Keefe's storyline, because his whole thing is that his leg was crushed, he hates Superman, because of Superman, he's now half a man. So why not have Lex manipulate this man into genetically creating him into Matalo, who is no longer a man, he's just a machine. That would have been... It would have paid off Wally Keefe's storyline by having him become the ultimate, big bad that Batman and Superman have to team up now to try and defeat. Instead, no, we don't get that. Lex just uses him as a decoy to plant a bomb. The whole courtroom explodes. Superman has this really bizarre, almost expressionless look on his face as if he does not care that everyone around him is dying. I don't understand it. That's bad directing on Zack Snyder's part, and that is just really subdued acting by Henry Cavill, in which you can tell he has no idea how to play this scene because he doesn't know what's being asked of him. Listen, I understand a lot of people making this movie like Zack Snyder as a human being, as a person. Nothing against that, but as a filmmaker, I don't understand his sensibilities half the time. Zack Snyder's sensibilities as a filmmaker, they don't make a whole lot of sense. Because scenes that should be played for dramatic effect are so downplayed, you don't know what's going on. Like, how detached do you have to make Superman? Speaking of which, once again, Superman is being told things, and once again, he refuses to ask questions or follow up on what's being told to him. He has this speech in which his mother tells him that he doesn't owe the world anything. And in the same speech, she says, be their monument, be their hero, be what you want to be. You don't owe no one anything. And he just looks at her. Speak, my friend. Say something. Let someone know how you're feeling of what's being told to you. Not only that, you get this random scene of Superman scaling the mountains and talking to the ghost of his father. Now, I understand what this scene is trying to convey. It's trying to convey the fact that Jonathan is telling his son, you got to find something to latch onto in a way. You got to find something that can ground you. Jonathan, it was Martha. For Clark, it's Lois. Here's the fundamental problem with this scene. Jonathan Kent is dead. And when Jonathan Kent is telling Clark the story about how he stopped a flood, but yet horses died, the way Cavill acts this scene, it's as if he's hearing this story for the first time. Your father died before you even revealed as Superman. And you're acting like you've never heard the story before. The impression I get from this scene, Clark Kent's losing his mind, and he needs to be locked up in an asylum. That's how this scene plays out to a viewer who has actually seen Man of Steel, and you watch this, and you look at and you just watch the reactions of facial expressions, and you're like, your dad is dead. And you're playing it off like you've never heard the story before. Superman has gone crazy. And he's not gone crazy by anti-life. He's legitimately mentally unstable. He needs to be locked up. That is the problem with BVS. It tries to have these poignant scenes, but when you put logic behind them, you're like, huh? And now we get to the nightmare scene, which, okay, listen. I like the whole idea of Road Warrior Batman. It looks cool on paper. I like the whole thing of the parademons and Darkseid and Apocalypse terraforming Earth and Darkseid terraforming Earth to look like Apocalypse. But here's my gripe. Why is this scene here? How does Bruce Wayne know? How is Bruce Wayne dreaming of this? How does he know about Darkseid? How does he know about parademons? Why is the Flash? Why are we having a scene of the Flash? Being this ominous voice to Bruce, like, "It's too late. Am I too early? It's Lois. Lois Lane." When you actually watch this scene without context, it's incredibly silly. And listen, I don't give a rat's ass if this was part of Zack Snyder's 5-movie plan. I don't give a fuck. I want to watch a movie of Batman and Superman and their conflicting ideologies. I don't give a shit about your forced, heavy-handed universe building that is so sloppily done, it's ridiculous. Listen, just because the nightmare scene looks cool, that doesn't mean it has to be in this movie. It really does not have to be in this movie at all. Just because we see a snippet of evil Superman in a dream that I still don't know how Bruce is even dreaming of and how he knows about any of this stuff, because there's no idea being implanted into his head about this stuff. I don't care about this nightmare crap. You could have taken this nightmare bullshit out of the movie and explored more of Bruce's backstory and the events that led to him being a broken man. It's ridiculous. Speaking of which, I do like Batman's introduction to this movie for the first time in costume. The way Zack Snyder shot that whole thing was straight out of a horror movie, and if Zack Snyder were to direct a full-on Batman movie, which seems to be his comfort zone, I think he could have done a really good job. Just don't have him write it. Just have him direct it. Like, I'll always defend Zack Snyder as a visual director. He's fantastic. As a writer, not so much. Give Zack a script. Have him direct the movie the way he wants to direct the movie in terms of scenes and atmosphere. A Batman movie, the way he shot his introduction in this, could be really awesome and really borderline on something horrific. I like that idea. I've always liked that idea. But in terms of Zack writing, just don't let him write. So yeah, let's see. We covered almost everything that there is to cover. Now let's talk about the third act and why I hate this third act. So this whole third act pretty much hinges on the shaky foundation. Now, I'm reviewing the Ultimate Cut. So throughout the Ultimate Cut, Clark is doing an investigative journalism on Gotham and Batman, and if what Batman's doing is inhumane or not by branding people. And this is Superman's premise to want to fight Batman because of the whole branding and whether or not Batman should be known as judge and jury and executioner. And that goes against Batman, who thinks that Superman should be stopped at any cost. Like, the whole foundation of the fight is stupid. The foundation of the hopeful optimistic against the jaded pessimistic would have been so much better if you would have took the good elements of the Dark Knight Returns and applied to this movie, instead of what they ended up doing to get these guys to fight, in which the fight lasts 5 minutes. It's okay. It's not the best scene of the movie. That goes to the warehouse scene. That's the best scene of the movie. But yeah, you get the whole "Save Martha" bullshit, which is unintentionally hilarious, and I don't know why I don't know why Superman said "Save Martha." Why couldn't you just say "Save my mother"? Save my mother. She's innocent. Why did you have to say "Save Martha"? Why did you say that name? Like, seriously, why did you say that name? It was so stupid. So dumb. But for some magical reason, just this snaps Bruce out of his psychosis. He's like, "I'm gonna be your friend now." And of course, this leads to the warehouse scene. Badass. They say Batman saves Martha. But while all that's going on, Lex Luthor, because of manipulation on his hand, got access to the Kryptonian ship from the first movie. He has the body of General Zod, and he pretty much perverts General Zod into Doomsday. Yeah, this whole thing was stupid. I'm not against the idea of genetically reverse engineering General Zod into Doomsday. That could have been done in a different movie let's say, Justice League 1 instead of BVS. Excuse me. But yeah, so we undercut the character of Wally Keith. We cut out the character of Metallo, who could have been a good throwaway villain for Batman and Superman to tear apart. Instead, we have to rush Doomsday, and anyone familiar with Superman lore and Doomsday, you know what's going to come at the end of this movie. So yeah, again, not against the idea of General Zod becoming Doomsday. I'm against Doomsday being in this movie because he has no reason to be in this movie. Then you get the fight between Batman and Superman. That leads to Batman and Superman teaming up, taking on Doomsday. Then Wonder Woman comes out of nowhere. She does a little bit of this, does a little bit of that. Superman gets this kryptonite spear that Batman threw away before he was going to kill him. Of course, at first, Lois tries to get that spear, and the dummy nearly got herself killed because of it. Yeah, so Superman grabs the spear. He kills Doomsday. In the end, he ends up getting killed himself. I hate the idea of killing off Superman in his second movie. We have no reason. Superman dying in his second movie was the stupidest thing ever. I thought this sucked. It sucked when I saw it, and it sucks when I see it now. Why would you kill Superman off in his first movie? Not only that, you're killing off a Superman that the world is not totally sold on, that the world doesn't fully trust, and you kill him off in his second movie. I don't know how to feel about this rendition of Superman. If you want to kill off Superman so quick, you could have just did it in the first Justice League movie with General Zod's version of Doomsday as the lead villain, and Superman sacrificing himself with that, and then you do the whole resurrection in Justice Leagues 2 and 3 and that whole nonsense. Instead, you do it here. It's so forced. It's so fake. Like, the emotion is so fake. It's so poorly done. And what makes it even worse is that once you kill off Superman, you can never do it again because you already shot your wad. And it came across as forced and just out of left field. Now, listen, I actually like the idea of Superman's death inspiring Batman to find humanity again. Like I said before, I think Batman's character arc in this movie is so muddled and just so poorly handled that it comes out of left field. And Wonder Woman, her whole thing now is that she wants to, be back into the world and help, and now is going to help Bruce find metahumans. Lady, you did nothing about this entire movie, so whatever. and then, like I said, I'm going based off the Ultimate Cut. In the Ultimate Cut, we actually get a scene of Lex Luthor contacting Steppenwolf, and that is what segues into Justice League 1. We then get a scene of Lex in Arkham, which was supposed to set up Ben Affleck's solo movie with Deathstroke and things like that. And then, at the end of the movie, some dirt rises off Superman's coffin, cut to black. So yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I am not the world's biggest fan of BVS. But tell you the truth, Man of Steel is the better movie when I compare the two. For every good thing BVS had, Zack Snyder did something that was totally ridiculous and totally dumb. There are so many subplots in this movie that actually do not need to be there. There are characters in this movie that are poorly handled, and there are certain arcs that could have been more completed. Like I said, I can't stress enough how the idea of Wally Keith becoming Metallo should have been in this movie, and General Zod being turned into Doomsday should have been saved later on. The whole premise as to why Batman and Superman fight is all done through manipulation of Lex Luthor, and it's so convoluted and dumb that so many contrivances and coincidences need to be put in place in order for it to happen. Wonder Woman serves no purpose in this movie. Again, you do have some really good action sequences. The warehouse scene is fantastic. The opening prologue that sees Bruce Wayne in Metropolis during the fight with General Zod, that's good stuff. A lot of scenes involving Batman in general are really good. We actually get to see Batman and Alfred do detective work. I like seeing Batman create his kryptonite weaponry. I actually like the montage scene of Superman saving different people saving people, and the news reporters questioning whether or not Superman should be used as a deterrent or not used as a deterrent. I like all that stuff. I mean, it's set up, but not really fully paid off, because the scene that was being built for the first hour and a half, which is the big courtroom scene, led to absolutely nothing. Like, for every good thing this movie set up, something stupid happens. And I'm sorry, BVS will go down as a very frustrating movie that had good ideas, but sloppy and poor execution. So, yeah, my overall final grade for Batman vs. Superman is a 5 out of 10. This is not the worst superhero movie ever made, though there are some people who can make a case that it is. It's not the greatest superhero movie ever made because it's damn far from it. It's one of the most frustrating superhero movies ever made because Zack Snyder does not understand these characters. And for a movie that for the first time gave us the DC Trinity on live action, I felt underwhelmed by it. And when I see a movie that's called Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, I don't want to feel underwhelmed by it. I want to love this movie. But in good conscience, I can't because I know it could have been so much better than what it really was. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for BVS. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe. And I will check you back next time for more.